Thanks, Peter. The government's backing down on plans to cut funding for specialist subjects like woodwork and cooking at intermediate schools. So, why the change of heart? Well, joining me now is political editor Corin Dann. Corin, thanks for joining us. Now, we are going to talk about education, this trivial sidebar to a successful nation. Did the government here get its sums horribly wrong, or did they actually think we'd be OK as a nation with the loss of the extracurricular specialists?
Oh, something went wrong. There's no question of that, no doubt about that, both in the communication and perhaps the formula to try and work this out. Something went wrong in the ministry or somewhere, so there was this confusion. If you remember, let's go back. If you remember, before the budget, there was this pre-budget announcement in which they announced the changing of the ratios for the year 2s to 10s, aiming for that 1 to 27.5, so one teacher for 27.5 children. That was the new ratio. What didn't come out then was this business with the middle schools, which is the intermediates, the year 7 and 8s. Turns out that a lot of those intermediates, of course, have the woodwork, and which they now call technology. Now, they were also funded, they have been funded, one teacher for 120 children. Now, that was not quite explained that was going, and they would now be funded on the broader scale, and that sort of specific funding for the technology would be rolled back in. This was all very confusing, and even on Monday, when the Prime Minister was asked about this at his post-cabinet conference, he found it a little bit confusing, I think, as well. And everyone's trying to work out what was going on. The bottom line is that they realised that once the intermediate schools started to work it out, that some of those schools, and only a small proportion of the schools, could lose up to 7 teachers. There was understandable outrage from those principals, and they were furious. And I think the government could sense that something was wrong here, sense also that the public wouldn't be happy about this as well, and they've moved quickly to smooth this out. Now, they say that they were always planning to have a transition period, that 90% of schools would only be affected in a very small way by these changes. But the 10% that would be affected, they always said there'd be some rough edges that needed to be sorted out. Well, they've sped the process up to try and smooth those rough edges. But it is a misstep, there's no question. You could see yesterday, in my view, that Hekia Parata, who has been one of the stars for, a rising star for this government, whether she was to blame for the problem is unclear, but she's the one having to do the explaining.
She still had a very bad day at the office, didn't she? Now, interestingly enough, though, talking around the traps a wee bit, this issue seems to be the one which a lot of people who are relatively disinterested in politics have really raised their heckles at. Do we see potentially this being the momentum shift as far as government popularity goes here?
Well,
or, the thing opposition's been waiting for?
I agree with that in the sense that this is an issue that cuts through. Absolutely. Class sizes, parents don't like it. The idea of increasing class sizes. The argument, of course, from the government is that while they agree that class size is important, they argue that teacher quality is more important, and that's where the extra money is going from.
Are we? We're not buying that quality versus quantity argument, are we?
Well, the danger for the government is it is an argument, and they've got research and evidence from Treasury to back this up, but they've blown it because they've dealt with this mess, having to fix this mess up. They're not concentrating on their argument, and they're having to explain that they're getting it wrong. The public is sitting there thinking, what's going on here? Why aren't they doing this properly? It is a bad mistake for this government, there's no doubt about it. They needed to get this absolutely right. Education is an extremely sensitive area and a very difficult area for any national Minister of Education to deal with. So for Hekia Parata to misstep in this instance is unfortunate for them, because they needed everything to go absolutely right. They've got a huge fight ahead with the unions, the teacher unions, which very rarely support national governments.
Corin, very quickly, I've been told to move on, but I do have to ask you, we had Tracy Marceau in here who presented this massive petition on the steps of Parliament yesterday. 60-odd thousand signatures. Do you think that this petition will give the momentum to what she wants as far as Christie's Law goes?
It is hard to know. I know Judith, that she may have some support from the likes of ministers like Judith Collins, who are fairly tough on law and order. It's hard to know. I'm sure the government will consider it, but I'm not sure that they've got anything in the pipeline at this stage.
OK, Corin Dann, political editor, thank you very much. Much appreciated.